Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Steve Mnuchin is taking off to the Middle East for 3 days. This is bad for COVID negotiations. Trump is allegedly over $1 billion in debt, not $421 million, but may have assets in excess of $3.5 billion, putting his net worth around $2.5 billion. 1,000 CDC officers say we have failed at COVID. Belgium and the northern region of Greece are locking down again. Berlin is banning alcohol sales starting at 11 p.m. And in Scotland, face masks will now be required in offices and public spaces. On stimulus, let's quickly get the latest from Larry Kudlow and then move on to Mnuchin, Pelosi, and what else is going on. And as a reminder, always get your life insurance, link down below. Android Pay and Apple Pay for it in as little as 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. Oh, and get 2 free stocks with Webull. Deposit $100, get 2 stocks worth up to $1,600. Larry Kudlow.
The president wants to go up from 1.8 trillion. Mitch McConnell says, no, can't sell that to Republicans. And Speaker Pelosi's having nothing to do with it. So it occurs to me that the chances of getting a really big stimulus package before the election are slim and none. What say you?
Well, look, I don't want to conclude anything. I was on the phone with Secretary Mnuchin for a while last evening talking about it. He was on the phone with the speaker for 90 minutes. But the important point here is you only got, what did you say, 18 days.
Yes.
So even if you made a deal, it would be almost impossible to execute. Maybe some of it could be executed, but you certainly couldn't get a grand, large deal. I mean, here's just one thought, Stuart.
A quick note before he goes into this thought. It's helpful to know my hair still has hope because we could see a stimulus package passed by the election. Actually getting all the checks out, getting the next PPP loans out, of course that's going to take time. The checks can go out within probably 10 days, 1 week to 2 weeks, and then that's going to take a few months to get all of them out. So the first batches can get out within a week or two. PPP loans, it's going to take a while to set all that up again. All right, here we go.
There's over $300 billion that is unspent from the prior rescue package.
Most of that, by the way, is sitting with the Federal Reserve for the underused Main Street lending program.
Okay, $300 billion plus. Now, that money could be going into unemployment assistance. We had an executive order, but it's not going to last forever. That money could be going into PPP, small business loans. That money could be going into airline relief that everyone agrees on.
But
so
why
all they have to do is appropriate it.
Isn't the money, you've got the money, you've got $300 billion.
Yeah.
Has it not been appropriated? Is that the problem?
That's correct. It has to be redone.
Why can't you appropriate it?
Well, it takes legislative and political will to do it. I mean, they're bickering. So Secretary Mnuchin gave ground, quote unquote, I'm not sure what that means, on this national testing strategy.
Yep.
But
Yeah, that's something that we're going to talk about in just a moment as well, because that's where a holdup is between Mnuchin and Pelosi right now, which is really frustrating because I thought this was already done on Thursday. On Thursday, they said it was done. Here, fine, we'll go for the vaccines. We'll give you the more money that you want, Nancy Pelosi. Here's the more money on the vaccines, testing, tracing, the $75 billion and the $28 billion. Well, apparently that was verbally done, but it still hasn't been in writing finished. That part. It's just one of many parts. So frustrating.
With a few edits left to do. But he's saying, what does that mean? We've had HHS guidelines for 6 or 7 months. It's the states who do the implementation. In other words, the goalposts are moving. You get to this point, and then something else happens around.
That's taking a little bit of a Trump line right there, and not saying that's good or bad, but Trump does say as soon as you make a deal with Nancy Pelosi on one thing, she wants a bunch of other things. Okay, so kind of echoing what Donald Trump says. All right, I mean, they're in the same administration.
The president wants a deal. Secretary Mnuchin is negotiating a deal. If Speaker Pelosi wanted a deal, I think we could round up enough Senate Republicans to get a deal. But 3 weeks to go. Less than 3 weeks to go. I don't know.
All right, then he gets excited about retail sales. We've already talked about that this morning. We talked about how, sure, retail sales are up for rich people, but not the people getting screwed who need stimulus. Anyway, on Mnuchin and Pelosi, here's the thing. Remember that on Thursday, Mnuchin said we're not going to let virus funding hold up this bill, and they cleared that, and we thought they had a deal on that. Well, Nancy Pelosi came out today and said that she's still waiting for this additional language, and apparently the language has some minor revisions to it, and she has to see if she approves of those minor revisions. And here we are, late on Friday, and we still don't have those minor revisions. This is why can't you just do it on the same day? Like, tell her what the revisions are on the phone. Like, how freaking hard is it? Anyway, to date, per Reuters, Nancy Pelosi has not yet received them and has said that Pelosi and Mnuchin will be speaking this weekend. But of course, the United States Treasury announced today that Steve Mnuchin will travel to Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE from October 17th to October 20th, which is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, to work on the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are a peace treaty between Israel, which is 74% Jewish, and the United Arab Emirates, which is 76% Islamic, followed by 12% Christian, aka barely Jewish. Now, while peace in the Middle East is important, I am confused as to why our stimulus negotiator, like the one stimulus negotiator left, like Mark Meadows, he ain't even in the game anymore. Larry Kudlow, he just tells us some stuff he hears through the walls or through the curtains at the White House. And now this one negotiator is going to be on the other side of the planet with an 8-hour time difference. Steve and Nancy can barely talk on the phone for an hour when they're in the same time zone, when they're in the same city. When they're both in DC, they can barely get this done. This sounds like a setup for a very boring weekend. Additionally, the Congressional Budget Office believes that Nancy Pelosi's Smaller Heroes bill totals up to $2.4 trillion instead of the $2.2 trillion that she advertises. On COVID, Pfizer and German firm BioNTech do not expect to apply for emergency use authorization for the COVID vaccine until the end of November. This is substantially past the election. Also, the US government has ordered 100 million vials ahead of time of this vaccine, with the EU, the European Union, ordering 200 million vials and Japan ordering 100 million. Also, here's something odd. Usually when you test negative for COVID, you still have a chance of having COVID. This is known as a false negative. But if you test positive, you're almost guaranteed to have COVID, or so we were told. Well, now, the Indianapolis Colts had 4 members test positive for COVID with a rapid test, only to be retested negative in what is now called a wave of false positives, which is shocking the medical community because it's the opposite of what we were told was likely to happen. Dr. Atlas, who's on the White House coronavirus task force, has also voiced the theory that only 20 to 25% of the population needs to be infected with COVID to have herd immunity, and therefore testing in isolation is, quote, grossly misguided. This comes as more than 1,000 current and former officers at the CDC have signed an open letter expressing dismay at the nation's response to COVID, calling the lack of leadership, quote, unprecedented and dangerous. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal, by the way. The way that read sounds like it would come from something that leans a little bit more left, but the Wall Street Journal put that out, which generally leans a little bit more right. This also comes as we are having massive outbreaks in small towns with limited resources. We had over 65,000 cases of COVID in just one day in the last 24 hours, and the Trump administration has also agreed to give free COVID vaccines to long-term care centers around the country by partnering with Walgreens and CVS once the vaccine is actually approved. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please consider sharing and subscribing. Get your life insurance and 2 free stocks via the links down below, and folks, we'll see you next time.